Hey everyone, good morning. Dave Stifter from Predict AP, sharing a thought of the day. Today it's about accounting. I had this idea about accounting being local at its core. Think about GAAP, its principles, and I think what's interesting is that all of us in our roles, in technology and operations, again, particularly in real estate, where accounting is a big part of it, have to deal with the reality that accounting is local by the company at a high level. And I think in real estate, it can be local, even down at property level, even down to that tenant level. And that makes things really, really hard. And that challenge around understanding the nuance is something where products that are industry agnostic or take a very broad approach to solving it really need to be translated to a particular company. And the way this manifests is chart of accounts. Every company has a unique chart of accounts. Ways that things are accrued, right? What do you capitalize versus what do you expense? What's your close process like? How are you doing your soft close and hard close? How are you categorizing things when you're doing construction, if it's in CIP or, all of these different decisions that different companies have, different levels of tolerance, different ways of dealing with it. That's something that is really challenging from someone from the outside to understand. It's really a very deep deep well of understanding of how it happens, the history of how it happened, and there's always reasons as to why things happened, and that's why we have like audit, right? External auditors spend weeks and months and years understanding how each company is approaching that. And so that's the challenge. And traditionally, if you start a new company, yeah, it becomes extremely challenging to understand that. It's a long ramp period to understand how this company is doing things. And again, that history of what and why. If you're a third party service provider, extremely challenging. Those TPMs have to come in. You have a new client. Oh, I've got to learn hundreds of properties, potentially thousands of vendors. And then what's their local accounting policies and procedures, and how am I gonna keep that going? That's why TPMs in general like to have people go in their systems, because they have their chart, their way of doing things, their process, and so it becomes extremely challenging for TPMs to be able to understand what that company's flavor of that is. For a new employee, say you're starting a multifamily, you're a manager at a apartment complex. Okay, well, now you have to learn, 50 new employees. You have to learn 300 residents. You have to learn hundreds of new vendors, and you have to learn how this company wants to deal with their accounting, right? How do they budget? How do they break these things out? How granular are they, right? Are they tracking things by unit or are they not, right? And this, again, could be different building by building. So all of that can be a real challenge. And so the positive of that is that there's new tools, right? I think this is an area where AI can be extremely helpful, where that local knowledge can be served up or at least get to a much closer place with these AI tools. And that historically wasn't possible. Historically, the way you learn this was you go look at history, you ask people, you tap someone on the shoulder, and that's how you learn about how our local accounting treatment is. But I think AI applied properly, this is, I think, where we'll see a really, really big distinction, that some firms are taking this very broad approach and I want to learn very, very broadly. Some firms, Predict AP, at our core, are learning very local, learning very specific, and trying to find those nuances about how can we help someone. Hey, you're brand new to a property. Let us tell you all those nuanced accounting things, and you can deal with what's something that AI can't deal with, which is the people aspect of it, right? That local interaction. So it's an exciting area, and I think as we see applications being built around these new AI tool sets, we're going to see how they can bring that local knowledge to people quicker, and we'll also, I think, see a lot of things that can now be centralized that could not be centralized before because the knowledge was not centralized. So I think those are two areas that we're definitely going to see. So in summary, accounting is local. It's nuanced. It's hard to kind of learn all the rules. That can be very particular. I think we're going to see AI tools help with that. And I think we're going to see it also enable a centralization of tasks. And then really the focus is going to be more on what can AI not handle centrally, right? Which would be back to that multifamily example, that resident experience, which I think is where you want people, right? That relationship building on site versus someone in the back room coding invoices or doing accruals. Anyways, thank you for that, and I hope you found this helpful.